Welcome to a new episode of your favorite broadcast, The Huddle House. It's just me and Ty this week. I know it was like that last week. Guys, don't get too mad at us. We're gonna start trying to get the guests involved. Just a few weeks of probably bad planning on my own part, not really hitting people up with enough notice. Yeah, we'll start getting the guests on starting next week. But I think we're gonna just have another week of just me and old Shadster. So how you doing, Ty?
Doing good, man. Yeah, life's been busy lately. It's a little tough to get around to doing this other than when we can, like we just got to fit it in. So it makes it a little hard to schedule, but doing all right, man. Don't really have much to say other than lost.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's never fun.
yeah, but it was one of those losses that like there was nothing I could have done, I don't think. Like Marcus would have beaten me, you know, up, down, right, or left this week. I really had nothing that I could have done, and we didn't have that bad of a week. I mean, 114 is not, it's not
Yeah,
win, but that's not like a piss poor week or anything like that. So
yeah. I mean, it's not like looking at your roster. It's not like that many guys just like wet the bed or just didn't perform. I mean, obviously you would have liked to have gotten a little more from T. Higgins, but outside of that, I mean, everyone was 6, 7 points or greater. So it's not like it was a bad performance. But Marcus just he's got a few firecrackers on his team, man.
yeah,
Um,
Raheem
he's
Mostert,
had some.
yeah, Raheem had 32. I knew that was going to be a rough week as soon as Achan was out. Um,
Yeah.
that's tough. Anytime somebody scores 32 on you, that's pretty tough. But yeah, get a little more from T. Higgins. It's been the theme of the season for me. Would love that at some point, but
Yeah,
haven't got it yet.
it's bound to come, man, at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, there haven't been any super noteworthy trades this week, and me and Ty were talking about it. We think we're maybe 1 or 2 weeks too early to really dive too much into playoff predictions of who we think will make it and stuff. Because I think we both agree this is a pretty pivotal week to kind of shake out the leaderboard and the standings and get a little more clarity on what we think that picture will look like. So I think we're gonna maybe try to do that in the next week or two. But I think we're gonna have your typical just kind of prior week breakdown, upcoming week preview type deal, like we've done a few times now. Let's dive in. Let's kind of go over some of the week 6 matchups. I know we just kind of dove in on yours a little bit, Ty. Let's kind of bounce to some of the other ones. So which one you want to start with?
Well, the first one I see on my list is James and Chris, so maybe we can start there.
All right, sounds good. Um,
It was one of those just get it done type of wins for James. It wasn't super pretty, but it definitely wasn't pretty for Chris either.
yeah. Oh, it definitely wasn't. Chris had a tough week. He's really, really, really banged up at the running back position right now with no Aaron Jones and Najee on a bye. Um, he was really scrapping this week just to try to find, just bodies to put, into the game, and ended up having to stream obviously a couple unexciting options. Um, and both of them at least gave him something, but not really enough to win you any matchups. And
Yeah.
um,
It's tough
he just got
whenever you're starting Brandon Powell and Devontae Parker in your flexes, that's a tough. That means you're a little thin, and
yeah,
bye weeks kind of did him in. Well, not having Najee and then yeah Jones being out, but really what's hurt him too is just Bateman being kind of nothing this year, along with Mooney. Like, those two guys had a lot of promise at points in their career, and they've just been kind of non-factors this year. And
yeah. Bateman is he's getting to a point where you can question if he's even
dude,
trying to be.
he's getting outperformed by Nelson Aguilar. Like,
Yeah. When you're struggling to see the field over Nelson Aguilar and 33-year-old Odell, like it's and you're 23 and fresh as a chicken,
former former first round pick too. I mean, like it wasn't
yeah,
that long ago.
it's just not a good situation for him to. He's got plenty of career left to turn it around, but so far it does not seem like he's someone that'll ever be super fantasy viable. So that's
Yeah.
definitely hard on him. Hasn't gotten anything from Darnell Mooney, who used to be a thing, but it just seems like the last few years he hasn't really been someone you really want to ever have to play. And you know, just a tough week for Chris. But I want to kind of point out with James that this was a down week for James in terms of like points total, and he still put up 105. So I think that's kind of a staple of just how consistent he is. That I think this might be his worst game of the season. I think. Let me look. In terms of points totals, actually no, his week one he put up 91. But other than that, he's been on a tear of 135, 133, 137, and 132, like 4 weeks in a row. So I mean, his team's been on a tear, and this was, a down week for him, and he was still able to thankfully catch a guy on a worse down week, which is sometimes it's the name of the game. Sometimes you gotta you gotta hope that your rougher weeks fall on other people's rougher weeks, and he caught
What
that
it's
this week.
what it's all about. So little in your control. I think the things I wanted to mention here was seemed like he avoided major injury with McCaffrey. Seems like yeah, he's banged up, but might be able to go even this week. So that was good news for him. And even on like a rough game for CMC, it was still like nearly 13 points. But the bigger one here is ETN. I think that's the thing that I really wanted to mention was how well that trade seems to have been, or seems to be tracking for James so far. Just getting ETN, who's the RB3 on the year right now for, I believe it was Rashad White, essentially. Like there were other pieces in that, but back-to-back weeks of really, really studly performances from ETN. And this one was one that really, helped get him over that 100-yard mark or 100-point mark in victory.
Yeah, I mean ETN's the RB3 this year. He's averaging 17 and a half points. I think we're really gonna look back at that trade as just kind of like a real momentum shifter in James's favor, where it's just like, I mean, I know Rashad White's had a few good weeks, but I mean, he has looked a lot closer to being replaced in his offense in the future than ETN is, who seems to be rock solid. And I don't really fully understand, what the reasoning for that trade getting done was to this day, but it has certainly helped James a lot. So,
Yeah, and it also last thing I think I'll mention here with James's team is he kind of got this on a Devonte Adams really down week, only 3.9. Um, he usually gets that performance. It's more costly, but it's the perks of having so much depth as he does. So nice win there. Stays undefeated atop the league. Looking like he's going to be, locked for one of those top spots this year.
yeah, I definitely foresee a buy in James's future. His team is looking beautiful on paper. So, next up, I guess we can move to Lucas and Austin, which was a high scoring affair, kind of similar to the matchup we just talked about with you, where when you look at Austin's team and you're like, well, there's not really a whole lot more he can ask for. I mean, he gets 121, and that's with David Montgomery getting hurt,
Mm-hmm.
pretty early in that game. Who knows what he could have potentially done if he played the whole game. And, so it's just that was kind of a tough break for him. But, putting up 121 even with that, it's kind of like it's hard to be super mad losing with that type of point total. But sometimes that just happens.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, to fall to 2-4 off a game like that, or off when you put up a lot of points. This was a must win for Lucas to kind of right the ship, and him. It was cool that him going to get Tyreek Hill was really the thing that, excuse me, was really the thing that helped push him over the edge and propel him to that win. I think this things to note here with Austin was tough to lose Monty and might be out, not have him for a while. But he again gets that Chuba Hubbard fill in, who just is so good when he has to play. But down week for Puka Nakua, kind of leveled back out, only 26 yards. The one guy I wanted to mention on his team, and someone who's been a little disappointing this year is Damian Pierce. So
Mhm.
interesting. Like CJ Stroud has elevated everything about the Texans and their offense, except for Damian Pierce. It feels like
Yeah.
he is like not. I mean, I don't know what happened this past week, if he got banged up or what happened, but he only played 33% of snaps, his lowest all year, and only managed 34 yards. And he's really just been kind of mediocre this year, which has been
Yeah.
a little bit of a surprise because he really won out in the offseason with them not bringing in any competition. And I don't know what the deal is, but yeah, he's like the one guy who's not really reaping the benefits of having CJ Stroud around there. So interesting. But nonetheless,
Yeah.
Austin 2-4, he's going to be competing for. I mean, him and Lucas are going to be in pretty stout competition for one of these back end playoff spots, probably. So, or we'll see what happens. But yeah, this was a big win for Lucas to get himself back up into that 2-4 category.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, quick note on Damian Pierce. You could make a strong argument he's been probably one of the bottom three or four running backs in terms of efficiency in the league this year. He has 97 carries for 281 yards. That's 2.9 yards a carry. And that's with everyone else on the Texans thriving. So, yeah, it was very surprising. Damian Pierce was actually a guy I was really looking into this offseason. Hit Austin up a few times, wanting to see if he had any interest in moving him. And yeah, right now I'm looking back at that and not feeling too bad that I didn't end up doing anything. So, yeah, he has not been very impressive. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, great win for Lucas. He puts up a high points total, and he actually jumps up from like 11th in the league to literally seventh or whatever. He moves up like 4 or 5 spots just with one win because of how high his points total is.
Yeah, I believe he's like second highest, second or third highest in the league, despite that record. So his team's shown some capacity to put up high performances. I think we saw that with his 183 or whatever he put up earlier in the year. That was pretty crazy. So
Yeah.
still plenty to be excited about, obviously, if you're him moving forward, and he's got a lot of depth there on his roster as well. That's exciting. So I think
For
that's really
sure.
all needs to be said about this. I got you versus Jake up here next. If you want to share
Yeah.
some about this one.
Yeah, for sure. This was actually a week where I didn't get to watch a ton of football, at least during the 1 o'clock slate. I watched a little bit more at the 425, but I was pretty preoccupied this Sunday, and so I was just trying to follow it on my phone as much as I could, whenever I could, whenever I was able to. And I kind of had a little mini panic whenever I saw Debo go out, pretty early in the game, and I'm just like, that's really gonna hurt me if he doesn't come back. I was really worried, that would be the thing that kind of did me in this week, and that would have really hurt. This was a must-win matchup in my eyes because I've got a really tough stretch of games coming up the next like 3 weeks, and I have 3 games that I very easily could see myself losing. And so I was like, I needed to take care of the guys that are at least kind of. I'm not. And there's no easy wins, but the guys that are a little bit higher percentage chance wins. And so I needed to take care of business, and I was getting a little worried, when that happened, but thankfully, I checked my phone about 20, 30 minutes later when I get the chance and I see that Dalton Schultz had a few really big plays. I saw that Pittman came alive and, was able to put it together a good performance. I think Pittman only had like 5 or 6 points whenever I put my phone away, and the next time I looked at it, he had like 15. So I was like, okay, he kind of woke up, and things started to kind of trend in the right direction for me. I was, projected to win by 15. Then the 425 slate, was really just a joy to watch because even though Kyron Williams kind of cooked me a little bit, Cooper Kupp did the exact same plus a few more points and looked absolutely fantastic. I watched a large chunk of that game, and oh my gosh, he's so good. And it was so fun to watch him look like his usual self. And I was able to just kind of extend that lead even more and, pretty much secure it at the end of the 425 slate. It was pretty much a done deal. So it felt good to take care of business. 118 is a good week, especially considering, I have a 1.10 in my lineup with Debo. So,
Mm-hmm.
uh, overall, the guys came to play. Still got a few things I'm trying to figure out with the roster, but I'm feeling pretty good about things with Josh Palmer looking like he was super involved yesterday, and the Chargers offense is a guy I can lean on, and just a few guys on my bench that have proven to be at least somewhat viable. I feel like my roster's in a pretty good spot. So
Yeah, and I guess for Jake's side of things, that Kyron Williams game was super interesting because he ended the first half with only like 5 rushing yards, I think, and then he explodes for 150 and a touchdown in the second half. Does end up getting a little banged up, but That was a pretty crazy, pretty crazy game. You don't see that very often. The guy just be like 0 points and then he gets 21 and a half. Pretty interesting. He just had
Yeah.
a down week across the board. He had nobody else give him double digits other than Kyron and his defense. So just one of those weeks where the pendulum swings on the downside and you get no touchdowns really. And that's those are always tough weeks to win. And we just, that's when you see like a 90-point week. Like nobody was necessarily putrid and would sink you on their own, but when you put a bunch of them together, that's kind of what you get. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it. He only had two touchdowns, across the entire team, in this week, and one of them was from his quarterback, and the other one was from Kyron. But nobody else, got in the end zone, and it
yeah,
just takes more end zone. It takes more end zone scores in order to really win in this league. So
yeah,
thankfully, I avoided those big moments. I was a little bit concerned going into the week after the Thursday night slate, whenever Mahomes only gets 17, which isn't terrible, but for his standards is a little underwhelming. And then his defense got 16 that same game, and I'm just like, never a good sign when your opponent's defense scores almost as much as your quarterback. It's like, dang man, this puts me at a little bit of a disadvantage.
yeah.
But
Mahomes
thankfully,
didn't play a great game.
he didn't. He didn't. It wasn't anything special for him. So, thankfully, Purdy, had his worst game of the season and was able to kind of bail me out there. So
Yeah,
happy to get the win. Moving on to next week.
yeah. All right, let's see. I got uh I got Carter and Mitri up here next in a game that was pretty competitive. Pretty competitive final score here of 119 to 108. Carter pulls out a win, moves to 4-2. Mitri sits at 2-4. But Mitri had a lot of solid performances there to really make that a close ball game. Carter got Saquon back, who had a lot of volume, didn't get in the end zone or anything. The Giants were kind of stymied all night by the Bills, but got to like to see a healthy looking Saquon. He had a lot, 24 carries. Like he slotted right back into his normal workload. So
Mhm.
that was exciting to see. And then he keeps getting this freaking Zach Moss. Zach Moss was the RB6 right now in fantasy football. It's crazy.
I know. Who would have predicted? He's averaging 19.3 points a game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, that's been a huge blessing for Carter. And I think, as the other end of the spectrum that you own, Jonathan Taylor, I think with the contract JT just signed, I mean, I think everyone in the league's prediction is that that's going to start to slowly tilt back to JT's favor.
Yeah.
But I mean, if he keeps playing like this, I mean, you have to think that they're going to use Moss in some ways. It's hard to imagine he just becomes Naheem Hines and just gets a couple snaps a game. Like you have to think he's going to get something. He's
Yeah.
playing out of his mind.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think the Taylor blow up game's coming. Um, Probably not this week because they play Cleveland, and that's going to be a really tough game for them. But at some point, man, I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyhow, though, and another great move for Carter was honestly getting Jared Goff. Like
Yeah.
he's been great. He's been way more than just like I mean, he's been starting for. I mean, with the Deshaun injury, I don't know what he would have done if he hadn't. I mean, he's the quarterback 5 on the year.
Yeah. Oh, it was a huge move. And I mean,
Yeah, that was
I was talking to Carter on the phone the other day, and he's like, "Dude, I'm worried Deshaun's ever even going to be the same because I mean, the injury Deshaun has. I mean, he wasn't even playing good going into the injury, not really, but he's the injury he has is on his throwing arm, and it's kind of a tough one to come back from. I mean, you can come back from it, but like Cam Newton had that same injury, and his arm was never quite the same. So I mean, obviously Deshaun can overcome it, but I know there's definitely some concerns, that he might not quite have the same arm power or arm, accuracy that he used to have. So the fact that he could not just get a backup QB in golf, but someone that's an actual real life MVP candidate right now, like actually, been outstanding, like 12 or 13 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. I mean, he's a QB5 averaging 20 points a game. Like it's someone that is actually a high end starter in the league right now. So that's
yeah.
really saved him.
Yep. Yep. It sure has. It was a
It's probably. I mean, you have two. Well, you're doing all right too now, but I know you.
I
Probably
had.
would like to have had Goff a few of those Justin Fields weeks, maybe.
What are you gonna do, man? Yeah, what are you gonna do? If I'd have known that his Achilles was a little stronger than Rogers, maybe I would have held on to him. But
Yeah.
good enough. uh, anyway, yeah. So his team had a great week. They look really good, and 4-2 is a nice spot to be sitting, and theoretically should be trending upwards because you get Deshaun healthier, you get a little bit higher ceiling. And for Mitri, he got a great game out of Dak. Dak looked awesome last night, and has been getting a lot of production out of Curtis Samuel too, who's quietly been one of the better receivers, better like the number 2 receiver on Washington, which is surprising. Also,
I
should
mean, yeah, Jahan Dotson, I don't know what's going on with him, but that man is not even getting any work.
Dimitri's also getting a little bit of a breakout here from Josh Downs, playing with Gardner Minshew is going to be beneficial for his target share and everything. Only 21 yards, 5 catches for 21 yards, but he does get in the end zone. So they're looking
Yeah,
for all that
they
to
are for sure. I mean, in the week before, Josh Downs,
he
I
was
was
eight.
playing against Dimitri the week before, and Josh Downs played great. And so I remember looking at that game script, just kind of following the play by play, and it just was like another catch for Josh Downs, another catch for Josh Downs. So it seems like he's the clear number 2 there behind Pittman, and there's definitely going to be some games where it's almost 50-50 between those two. So
Yeah.
he's getting a lot of looks. So that's good for him. Jordan and Caleb, I mean, I don't think we need to talk about this one a ton.
What's the lowest point total that's ever been scored in our league? Is it 48? Has there been anything lower than that?
I don't think so. I know I had one week where I had like 52 in our very first season. It was like week 2 or 3. And I just remember the pain I was feeling that week, just how hard that was to watch. But this, but I just remember how terrible that felt for me. And I'm just now thinking of Caleb in his house doing cartwheels and jumping jacks of excitement to see his team play this pitiful. And it's a sight to imagine.
Well, he actually had some good signs of life from Kyle Pitts, caught a touchdown, and Waddle got in the end zone there too. Obviously, Fields being banged up is going to hurt him considering he doesn't have another quarterback on the roster right now. So he might score even less than 48 next week.
I'm just haven't looked yet at his points totals. I haven't looked at like the lineup, but he had two guys. He had two guys without even a single target.
Yeah, yeah. Sherfield with nothing and Mechie with nothing. Yeah,
We're in bad shape, man. He's got the top 5 picks though, so I mean he'll be all right. But
yeah,
I don't think I've ever seen that.
yeah. Two just not even gooses. Like two just they didn't even play. Like they didn't even
Yeah.
play.
Oh, God. That's funny, man. That's a funny time. Gosh, Caleb's team is rough.
That's
Uh,
cracking you up. I've never seen a man laugh like this before.
well, I don't feel bad laughing because he's probably enjoying this. Like, I don't think he even cares.
Yeah,
He's just looking at Marvin Harrison tape every Saturday, man. I don't think he cares one bit. But he's got some holes to fill, man. All
yeah,
those rookies, those top 5 rookies they're gonna be starting right off the bat. That's for sure. So
yeah. There's definitely some holes there. But yeah.
that's great. But
Looking
yeah,
looking at Jordan's team, I don't know if he started a running back too last week.
I guess not.
I
This is a
think,
lineup. I did not look at this matchup at all until
yeah,
right now. This is the first time I've even looked at this. I just saw that the points totals were low, but I had not once looked at like the actual breakdown of the matchup. And yeah, this is the first time I'm seeing it. And yeah, Jordan did not play a guy and still won by 45 points.
yeah.
So like, it's
I'll tell
I,
you what, he has been getting monster performances from Adam Thielen. Like Adam Thielen is holding up that 6-0. Like he has the team on his back. He's been amazing this year.
And Jacoby Myers, bro. Like we have to look at him too. I mean, Jacoby Myers is, wide receiver 14 this season. I mean, we're in a 14-man league. That's a wide receiver one. I mean, it might be a dead last wide receiver one, but that's a wide receiver one. Like he's averaging almost 15 a game.
That's mind blowing, dude. I mean, wow.
I mean, who would have thought that he would have stumbled upon, Adam Thielen and Jacoby Myers? I mean, we were all calling him crazy, obviously, for trading, Hollywood Brown for Adam Thielen. And obviously, right now, I mean, I still obviously like, prefer Hollywood because he's a lot younger. But I mean, for his purposes of being, trying to contend this year, I mean, he's 6-0. I mean, considering he's a playoff team, I'd almost rather have Thielen because it's like he's gonna, guarantee contribute.
Yeah.
So I mean,
I mean, to start
maybe he
off
saw something we didn't.
6-0, like you really, it's hard not to make the playoffs doing that, man. Like he could go like 2-6, like you said, still probably be a playoff team the rest of the way. As crazy as that is. So he wins
Yeah.
more games, he's probably in.
Yeah, I know. I mean, he's looking like, I know he went 6-0 last year, and I know people can, point to that and be like, oh, this could be, he could do it again. I mean, the statistical probability of him doing that twice in a row is very unlikely. It
Yeah.
was kind of mind-boggling that it even happened last year. I don't expect that to happen twice in a row. And
And
two, I think we
he's got a
also have to
better
acknowledge
team.
his team's a lot better. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think we need to
he's got a
acknowledge
lot
that.
better team this year.
It's not like he's, like last year, he was largely squeaking out low scoring wins, just kind of, just finding ways to win games he really didn't deserve. But this year, he's deserving most of his wins. I mean, he's scoring consistently. He has 3 weeks, with 120 plus points, and then
Yeah.
another week with over 110. So, I mean, when 4 of your weeks are 110 and higher, like he's earning his wins. So
Yeah.
it's got a good team. Like it's not, I'm not going to put it up there with the likes of James's necessarily, or even Lucas's from a roster standpoint, but I mean, he has a very respectable roster. It's not like hard to look at or anything. It's pretty good.
So
So,
on to the next matchup. I don't know if this one will make you laugh quite like that one did, but Jeremy trades away Tyreek and then goes on to pull off a win right after it, 99-80 over Brandon.
yeah, yeah. Well, trust me, Ty, I wasn't on my bingo card that I was going to start crying laughing during this episode. I did not see any chance of that happening. But man, I don't know what got into me. I saw that and dude, the water burst. It was that just cracked me up, man. I
Uh,
just don't think I've ever seen that where he got a combined 4 points from his two running backs, and then he had two receivers that didn't even get one single look. Like, that's hilarious.
yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I didn't see that coming. But no, but Jeremy, yeah, Jeremy's like telling me on the phone last week, like, yeah, man, I don't really care if I lose now. Let's just see if I can get bad enough to get a good pick. Maybe leapfrog one of Caleb's picks or something, and then he comes out and wins. It's just like, I mean, I know Jeremy doesn't care to win. He's kind of like, he's not going to go all in on like the tank thing, and just completely, sell everything. But so I think he's okay with winning, but he's just, he's okay if he doesn't. He's kind of neutral.
Yeah.
So I don't think Jeremy's too upset that he won. I just think he wouldn't have cared if he lost, and he pulled it out. But I think that's just been the story with Brandon's team this year. Is it's just been he's either done really well or he's done absolutely nothing. I mean, you look at 3 weeks where he had 144, 112, and 112, pretty good weeks. Then he also has a week of 63, a week of 90, and a week of 80. So it's like when he's on, he's on. When he's off, he's really off, and
Peaks and
uh,
valleys with him. It definitely is peaks
yeah,
and valleys.
yeah. And so it's just yeah, it's hard to know what to make of his team. I mean, he's 3-3 right now. He's still in the playoffs, at least as of right now. He's still definitely one of those teams competing. But I think one thing he has to worry about is there's a bunch of really solid, hungry 2-4 teams right behind him, and almost all of those teams, I think maybe all of them have just about have higher points totals than him by a pretty hefty margin. So
Hmm.
unless he starts going off the next 3 or 4 weeks, he's probably not winning many tiebreakers. So he has to hope in this next stretch of games that he's just winning, because, he's probably not going to win on points this year, or get in on points. So these low weeks are really hurting him there. So he's going to have to just find ways to win games if he wants to be getting the playoffs. So he definitely can do it. I'm not going to count Brandon's team out, but Yeah, he's just been very inconsistent.
Yeah, I think if you're Jeremy and you made that trade, like you landed Drake London, who has really been coming on here lately. I mean, his numbers have been increasing the past 3 weeks: 10 points, 11 points, now 17. Targets have been going up. You got to be encouraged by that. And then just also, he really found something there with Nico Collins, and CJ Stroud's kind of awakened him. So, um, he could definitely stay competitive this year. 2-4 is not out of it by any means, and he geared up a little bit for the future. So a nice win here. Yeah, I think for Brandon, this is the trend we've seen. He just didn't get the performances from Lawrence, and then I guess the Jags and the Bengals. He didn't really get star performances from Lawrence and Ridley or Mixon and Chase. So
Yeah.
whenever that's the case, this is the weeks you get from him. But it also is what leads to 144-point explosions like what he had last week. So it's one of those give
Mhm.
and takes.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure. But
yeah,
let's go ahead and now that we got all last week's matchups recap. Let's kind of just we have 5 minutes left or 6 minutes left. Let's just kind of try to best spend about a minute on each matchup and just try to kind of do a little quick prediction on each of these last ones. So for this upcoming week. So first off, we got Marcus and Jeremy. Just a few things to note. Jeremy doesn't have Burrow or Nico Collins, and he still doesn't have Miles Sanders. So he's really being hit a lot with the buys, whereas Marcus has pretty much no relevant buys. So I mean, I'll just pretty much start off. I'm definitely going to take Marcus because of that.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Jeremy could to note of Jeremy, he could get Elijah Mitchell on a Monday nighter if CMC is a no go, which would be a big boost. But
Mm-hmm.
still not sure that's going to be enough. Marcus is definitely catching Jeremy on an advantageous week here, and it looks like he has a good opportunity to go 2-0 without JJ, which would be huge for his hopes this season for sure. So,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah, well, it would be huge if he can just find a way to go 3-1 or even 2-2 without JJ. I don't think you can feel too bad, with how that turned out. So next up, we got Lucas and Chris. Chris might be getting Aaron Jones back, but still has, as of right now, at least has Powell and Hill in the flexes. Not really what you'll love to see. Still not getting much out of those spots. Lucas obviously has Tyreek Hill and what should be a shootout with Philly. And Jalen Hurts in once again a shootout with Miami. So I think he's gonna get a lot from that matchup on Sunday Night Football. So I'm gonna take Lucas to win.
hmm. Yeah, I think I like Lucas in this one too. Just so much depth there. He is without CD and Garrett Wilson, so he's without a couple big options for him, but he still fills out a nice roster despite that. Will be interesting if Tyreek Hill is injured and not able to go for some reason. I know he hurt his hamstring, I think, a little bit, but um, wouldn't expect that to deter him too much because he has a lot of options there. So just like his depth this week, a little bit better than Chris's. So I'm going to go with Lucas as well.
Gotcha. Next up we got Carter and Jake. You know, buys are really affecting this matchup a lot. No Tony Pollard for Carter. I'm also going to have to try to find something to do with his defense and kicker. And then, Jake might not be rocking with Kyron Williams. It's not looking like he's going to play. It's a huge factor. Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty bare bones matchup, I think, from what it's looking like. But, I think Saquon has a good game against Washington. I think that, I think he's going to get something from, Olave, hopefully, if he plays, and what should be a decent offensive game for on Thursday night, where the Saints might have to throw quite a bit. So I think Carter will find a way to win, but I could see Jake giving him a run for his money because I like Purdy a lot against Minnesota in a bounce back.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a weird one too, and I've got just a gut feeling here. I'm going to go with and pick Jake because I think that Purdy's going to have a really good game back, and I think that he's got some good matchups there with DK versus Arizona, and then Hollywood versus Seattle. And I'm a little worried about Saquon versus Washington. Yeah, just they have a good front. And if he has to roll with Goff, Baltimore is a tough defense, and Watson still might not be playing. We don't know. So I'm gonna roll with Jake on this one and follow my gut. Maybe it's also just partly out of hope that Zach Moss doesn't do anything.
Yeah, yeah. Possibly. We got 2 minutes left. Ty, do you mind maybe starting, or do you just want to try to wrap it up in 2 minutes?
Let's just wrap it up. We can go through these
Okay.
quick.
All right, me versus Jake, or not Jake, James. I think the way I'm going to basically say this is if CMC doesn't play, I'm taking myself. If CMC does play, I'll take James. Pretty much simple as that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's a big swing here. I honestly kind of am thinking the same thing. I think it's hard to argue with that. So but I do think I'm gonna roll with James, just the depth he has. And yeah, that CMC swing could be big.
Yeah. Um, Marcus versus Jeremy. Oh wait, we already talked about that one. Excuse me. My bad. You versus Jordan. It's a must win for you, man. He doesn't have Adam Thielen, which has been his anchor. So I mean, I think that's huge for you. Uh, and like I said, I think Dolphins Bills or Dolphins Philly will be high scoring, probably help too. At least that's what I'm hoping. So I'm gonna take you.
I appreciate that. I'm gonna take myself as well. Hope I'm gonna predict myself to bring down the unbeaten. Only thing I have to say, I've pulled fatter rabbits out of smaller hats before. Well,
Nice. Um, Austin versus Brandon. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna take Austin here. If he doesn't have David Montgomery, which it doesn't look like he's going to, that's gonna make things a little bit tougher. But I still think Puka gets a bounce back week. I think Andrews has a solid week against Detroit, and I think he'll find a way to win.
yeah, no Bengals really hurts Brandon this week. I'm gonna go with Austin too.
Yeah, and then last game we got Mitri versus Caleb. 57-57 is the projected, and neither guy has very many buys. I'm gonna take Mitri though because I mean we know who Caleb's still gonna start.
I'm gonna if Caleb picks up a quarterback and starts him, I'm picking Caleb. But if not, and I don't know if that's gonna happen, I'm picking Mitri. I just don't want to be Caleb's only win. Please, please be.
All right, guys. Well, this is a fun episode. Led to some tears on my end. I'll see you guys later. Peace.